This is the Sultanate of Oman, which occupies the southeast corner of the Arabian Peninsula, and its capital, Muscat, a splendid city of old and new, regal, palm-laden, prosperous from oil riches, where you can gaze out at the Arabian Sea just south of the Persian Gulf, or, as I'm doing, focus on Muscat's own considerable charms.
I'm here in the Muthra district with its famous corniche, which hugs the Indian Ocean shoreline in a community that a wide range of people have called home at one time or another for thousands of years. Muslims, of course, since the 700 CE, and after the voyage of Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama at the end of the 1400s, the Portuguese claimed this city for a century and a half, minus intrusions from Persians and Ottomans. Oman has always been an outward-looking crossroads for people and ideas. Coastal Omanis have one of the richest trading cultures in the world, including a history of shipbuilding and seafaring. In fact, Muscat means anchorage. You can actually still see the influence, architecturally and otherwise, of some peoples who dominated this place at one time or another. I'm climbing to one such place now. It's Muthra Fort, a project of the Portuguese built to guard over this marvelous port.
This fort was originally an Omani fort from the early 1500s. The Portuguese inherited it after taking over Muscat and added 2 towers and a long wall. Omanis made further additions after retaking it, but its purpose remained the same, to protect the port of Muscat from outsiders.
Hello. Hello. It's also a very elegant place that people come and sit and sip mochachinos outside the coffee shop cafe that is within the fort with marvelous views. And as we enter golden hour, those views promise to only get better. I'm here at the enormous Sultan Qaboos bin Said Grand Mosque, commissioned by and named after Oman's much-beloved former leader from 1970 until his death in 2020. The mosque itself is among the largest in the world and is set in an enormous garden-like surrounding of nearly 5 million square feet, which is overflowing with native plants and trees, all of which, you must remember, exist in a desert where there's less than 4 inches of rainfall per year. It can safely be said that Sultan Qaboos was one of the more enigmatic national leaders the world has seen in modern times. He was highly educated, an avid reader, and a lover of the arts. And considering that he was the head of an hereditary monarchy, maybe most unusually, he never married, and he had no heir. But in a letter, he instructed that his cousin, Haytham bin Tariq become sultan, and so it proved to be. Much of what Oman has become, including the prosperity it enjoys, is owing to the progressive rule of Qaboos. While much of the Middle East has struggled with internecine conflicts and Islamic extremists, Oman has remained a relative sea of calm, all the while becoming more diverse and open than most, if not all, of its Middle Eastern neighbors. Just a couple of examples. Women here make up 77% of university students, and the wearing of head coverings is optional. That said, it's still a place where one man, the Sultan, rules by decree. In fact, open criticism of the Sultan is illegal here. The press is heavily controlled by the government, and Omanis desiring to marry a foreigner from all but a handful of countries must first get permission from the Sultanate or risk losing their citizenship. I'm in one of the many inner courtyards of this mosque, and each one is as impressive as the other. Well, I've deposited my shoes, so let's step inside the great Hall of Prayer. The work to build this mosque began in 1994, and it was finished in the year 2000. What it lacks in antiquity is more than made up for in its sheer volume. The enormous rug that covers this prayer chamber is hand-woven, and it is said to have more than 1.7 billion, that's billion with a B, knots. It took 600 women 4 years to weave this rug. This is an enormous dome atop this mosque. The chandelier is gigantic. It's 46 feet tall. It weighs 8.5 tons, and it is said to have 600,000 crystals. This rug and the chandelier were each the largest in the world when this mosque was built. They're now said to be the second largest after the completion of the Sheikh Zayed Mosque in Abu Dhabi. In today's world, we're very much used to seeing large things, large indoor spaces that are glittery and bright and shiny and often illuminated with LED lights. And then you come in a place like this that, although not old, of modern origin, it's built as if it were old. You see the splendorous materials put into this place, from the woven work, the rugs, the stupendous tiles that adorn the walls, the chandeliers, and the intricate wooden doors. Everywhere you begin to appreciate what craftsmanship is. I've passed through the old gate and am now in an area that is thick with government ministry buildings, en route to the Al Alam Palace, Oman's historic Capitol building. As you can see, it is a distinctive yet relatively humble building with a gold and blue facade. The palace was built a little more than 200 years ago. It isn't open to the public yet. People can still come and gather near the gates to take a look at it. In fact, these days it's a ceremonial palace only. In the 1970s, it was redone as another residence of the Sultan. There are 6 Sultan residences in all, I'm told, and this one is used to greet foreign dignitaries. Something very majestic, not only about the building, but its surroundings, surrounded by classic Arabic colonnaded government buildings, but more importantly, just the grounds here, immaculately manicured with beautiful flowers and palm trees. The setting here, the environment, has the ocean on one side of the palace, but surrounding it on 3 sides are these spectacular, rocky, craggy mountains that just make this a splendid desert setting. Something else I would note about the architecture of the building itself is how futuristic it appears, considering that it's more than 200 years old. I'm imagining it from 2 centuries ago, and I would imagine that it would have been something of a modern marvel at that time. So walking around the palace grounds here and seeing the 2 forts that have historically protected it got me to thinking about Oman in general and how it has been sat upon from time to time throughout history, invaded by the Ottomans and the Portuguese, but has managed to survive. It speaks to the strength and determination of this sultanate to sustain itself throughout history, and especially through the 20th century, with Muslims of the 2 sects, the Shias and the Sunnis, at each other's throats, so to speak. The Ibadis have managed to maintain relations with both factions. I guess I should stop there, because a better way to conclude this little comment than to hear the calls to prayer in the background.
As an oil-rich country that has modernized while holding to tradition in one of the world's most volatile regions, Oman defies easy explanation, something that's both enigmatic and reassuring.
Ini